Sony decided to kill the EVF on all of their new cinema cameras. But today, we're bringing it back to life with the Portkeys LEYE EVF. And we're gonna mount it in a more convenient spot, especially if you're rocking a shoulder rig. All right, let's go. We're using the Sony FX6 to build out this shoulder rig, but really you could use just about any camera because the principles and most of the parts are the same. The first thing you have to do is of course throw a cage on the camera, and I'm using this one from Tilta. I'm not gonna show you putting it together because I've already done that in another video. I'm also using this top handle from Tilta for the FX6 instead of the one that actually comes with it because I need many more mounting points to mount my EVF. Now that is a bummer because I do lose my two full-size XLR inputs. So if I can find a way to mount the EVF in the future on this, I will do it. Let's get a base plate on the bottom of the camera, and what I'm using today is this Small Rig VCT quick release shoulder pad. It comes with its own quick release plate that fits into the shoulder pad. It is a standard Manfrotto 502 plate, but it has these little 15mm rods also built into the plate. So we're gonna mount this on the bottom now. Next, let's put a V-mount battery onto the back of the FX6, and I'm gonna use the V-mount plate that comes with the Tilta cage. And the reason that I'm putting it here is because I like how small and low profile it is. There are 15mm rod mounts on the back of the shoulder pad, so if you wanted to, you could throw the 15mm rods in here and then throw a different V-mount battery plate on the back. And that way you can get that weight even more evenly distributed backwards and work as a counterweight for the camera. Now let's get the arms on there, and I'm using these two from Small Rig. They are fully extendable and they have airy rosette mounts on each end. I'm gonna tighten them down to the airy rosette mount on this shoulder pad base plate. Next, we're gonna mount the side grip that comes with the FX6. And this is so convenient to have because it has a record, start and stop button, zoom rocker. You can go through all the menus here, set up custom buttons, and just so many other things. So we're gonna put it on the end of the arm here. And this is just so convenient to have when you're using a shoulder rig. Now, it doesn't just screw right onto the end there because that uses airy rosette. So I bought this adapter also from Small Rig that goes from airy rosette to the quick release that the FX6 handle uses. So I'm gonna get this mounted right now. Now you just line it up with the white dot on the grip and the white dot on the adapter and click it into place. And then you can of course spin it around with the little quick release button here on the handle and get it positioned exactly where it's comfortable for you. Now to actually control the camera with the grip, you do need to get it plugged in. So luckily the adapter comes with an extension, so I'm gonna get that plugged in right now. For the other grip, I'm gonna be using the Tilta focus handle, and I've shown this in many videos in the past. This is absolutely one of my favorite accessories because it allows you to pull focus completely remotely on a manual lens without removing your hand from the grip. You can just use your forefinger to pull focus. It's so convenient. And this one has an air rosette on it, so make sure you get one because it's the most universal mount, especially for shoulder rig arms. The next thing we need to do is add the Tilta Nucleus Nano focus motor, and there's a couple different ways that you could do this. There are 15mm rod adapters on the front of the shoulder rig here. So you could throw a piece of 15mm rod in there if you want to, but mine has a problem, and that's that the Nucleus Nano actually doesn't reach the lens. Let me tighten it off and show you. There's just a huge gap here. And that's because the FX6 is a lot taller than many of my other cameras. Now there is a little riser built into this, so you actually can bring up the 15mm rods by about 1 inch, but even then it still doesn't reach. There's still too big of a gap. Now there's a couple different ways that we could solve this, but luckily for me, with the Tilta cage itself, it actually also has 15mm rods built into it. So I'm just gonna slide out the existing ones that I already have in there and put the focus motor onto those. There we go, now it's mounted and the focus motor is actually making a connection with the gears of the lens. Now I'm gonna connect the focus handle to the motor itself using a micro HDMI cable. There we go. Now I can easily pull focus from the grip. I never have to take my hand off and come up here to a focus wheel or anything like that. I can comfortably keep a grip and pull focus when I'm using a shoulder rig. And I think this is a must-have when using manual lenses on a shoulder rig. Next, we're gonna mount the monitor that comes with the Sony FX6. And I'm actually gonna mount it on the right side here. That way we can still access all of our menu settings and make camera changes, but it's not in the way of where we're gonna be mounting the EVF. And this tilted top handle has the same mounting pattern of this monitor built into it, so that's really convenient. Now we're finally getting to the part that you've probably been waiting for, and that's mounting the EVF to the rig. So what I'm using to do that is this part from Small Rig, and it's actually an EVF mount. How convenient. I've actually been using it for a couple years now to mount my monitors when I'm using a shoulder rig, but of course it works well for an EVF. So what it uses is a NATO rail mount, and I don't actually have any NATO rail anywhere on this setup. So what I'm gonna do is add this little 2 to 3 inch piece of NATO rail to the side of the top handle here. And that's why we needed to use the top handle with threads, so we'd have a spot to mount this. All right, and now with that in place, we can go ahead and slide this on. All right, now let's actually get the Portkeys LEYE SDI EVF mounted to this. And what I've found with playing around with this, the best way for me to mount it is actually from the top. So basically upside down. There are these 3 1/4-20 threads on the bottom of it, and you don't have to mount it from the bottom. You can mount it upside down and then flip the internal display just using the menus so that everything actually displays right side up. All right, so I'm gonna put this on my shoulder, kind of try and line it up to where my eye is and tighten things off. That is lined up really conveniently with my eyes. And of course, the nice thing is I'm using this focus grip handle, so I never have to reach up for that focus wheel. I just keep my hands firmly placed where I want them at all times, and I can pull focus looking through the EVF here. Now, I showed you how ergonomically well this lines up, but I actually haven't powered it on yet, so I was just looking into a dark hole there. So let's go ahead and power this thing on. And it actually comes with this D-tap cable to LEMO pin connection. So that's really nice that they include this. We still need to get a video output feed from the camera and into the viewfinder. Now there's 2 different ways you can do this, like I mentioned earlier. You can use HDMI that does 4K up to 30 frames per second, or SDI up to 1080p. But I don't see this as a problem because the viewfinder itself has a max resolution of 1440 by 900. So you really can't even take advantage of 4K. So I'm always gonna output at 1080p resolution to this only, but still record at that full 4K resolution internally on my camera. Funny enough, I only have a bunch of very short SDI cables. This one's only 1 foot because I like to keep things nice and tidy and not have a lot of extra slack. But that presents a problem because it doesn't actually reach from the back of the EVF all the way to the back of my camera. So I'm gonna have to pick up a longer one on Amazon. So for now, we're gonna be using a longer HDMI cable. Now with everything powered up and on, I can see absolutely everything really clearly. Now let's talk about a couple of the tech specs of the viewfinder. So we've already talked about its max resolution. Let's talk about brightness. So it has a 450 nits brightness, which is plenty bright. You can see everything really clearly. You're not gonna have any issues getting things in focus or exposed properly with that brightness, and especially because it's inside of a viewfinder where your eye is cupping it and there's no other light leaking in. Now I'm gonna try to explain what it looks like on the inside of the EVF and try to get a shot of it, but it's really difficult because it has a little eyepiece in there so that you can actually see the display. So it's just kind of hard for the camera to pick up. But I will say that everything looks very sharp, bright, and clear. It's a very nice looking display and I'm very impressed with it. The colors also look accurate. It is only an 8-bit display instead of 10-bit, but that's not a huge deal because most of the displays on the back of cameras are only 8-bit. Now, I already talked about powering the EVF with the D-tap cable that comes with it, because you can get nearly all-day battery life with this and a large V-mount battery that you already have on your rig. That way you don't have to worry about external batteries and charging them and that sort of thing. But if you do want to, it uses Canon LP batteries that mount on the back here. There's a USB-A port here on the side that can be used to update your firmware. We already know it has this HDMI input, and on the back, we know it has that SDI input as well. There is no loop out. On the other side of the EVF here, you have all of your menu buttons for actually controlling the EVF and turning on your different tools. Now, it has all the tools built into it that you've become familiar with other monitors and that you're used to, like zebras, waveforms, focus peaking, pretty much all that stuff. I'll just put it on the screen here. Near the eyepiece on the viewfinder is this little wood ring. And not only does it look cool and it's made of a high quality red oak, but it's actually a diopter. So depending on your vision, you can simply spin this and get it in focus. Another nice feature of the eyepiece here is that it's all made of foam, so it feels really comfortable when you press it against your eye. It's not like an uncomfortable piece of like hard plastic or rubber. It's really soft and form fits around your eye and blocks out all the extra light. And it also has this little foam flap that goes down in front of it and covers up the eyepiece, so when you're traveling and you're on the move, it's not gonna get all scratched up and scuffed. So it does Velcro out of the way as well. There's a little piece of Velcro here and on the top. The back piece here that actually houses the display is made of a CNC piece of aluminum, so it's very high quality and sturdy. And then this tube part here is made of a hard plastic, and overall the EVF comes in at only 1 pound. There are 4 function buttons also built into the EVF. When you aren't mounting it upside down like I am, you can access them on the top. But those are nice if you want to quickly turn on and off things like waveforms, focus peaking, and so on. They're just quick little function buttons like you would expect. To be honest, I've been pretty EVF averse for a long time, and I didn't really want to put one into any of my builds and use it in my workflow. But now that I have one and I've been using it for a while, I've been really impressed with what it is and what it can actually do and how it can change things. Not only can you, of course, quickly see if things are in focus and exposed properly and you don't have to worry about any external lighting conditions, it does provide another steady place to kind of steady out your image with having your head placed up against it. So going forward, anytime I'm actually going to use a shoulder rig for a video shoot, I think I'm going to be using the EVF instead of an external monitor, because it just makes a lot more sense to use something like this on a shoulder rig. Now, when I'm going handheld or using a gimbal or something like that, I'm of course still going to be reaching for an external monitor. I tried to come up with a list of cons or issues that I had with the Viewfinder, but honestly, this might be a first on my channel. I really can't think of anything that's a big problem or issue with this. It's been working perfectly fine. The only thing that I can think of is instead of using USB 2.0, they should have gone with USB-C. It's modern times, it's 2022. We should have USB-C on our things now. Now, if you want to pick up one of the Portkeys LEYE viewfinders, there's 2 different models that you could go with. The SDI version at the time of filming is about $550 US, and it has that 450 nits brightness. But if you want to save some money, you can get the HDMI version for about $400, but it does only have 300 nits brightness, which I honestly don't see as a problem because you're looking into a dark tunnel anyways, so that really shouldn't matter. Definitely check out the links in the description below. And I want to say a special thanks to the guys over at Portkeys for sending this out for review. They didn't pay me to say any of this or see this video before posting. All right, guys, if you want to see more videos like this, hit subscribe right now, and I'll see you in the next video.